I think it is. Live streaming isn't available at the moment. Oh, no. YouTube chat is active. Something is happening. Something is happening. I just don't exactly... Yeah, okay, I'm live. Cool. Great start to the stream, people. Hello. How's everybody doing today? We're finally going to get to this guy's aggressive state. We've been having like a few issues lately. I don't know if anybody has been tuning into the past like 4 streams where we've been working on this guy's AI and then we get like sidetracked with other issues. Last week we started with like an hour of debugging because suddenly a class that hadn't worked on in like 2 months was throwing an error. Like, why? Today is the day that we actually... Okay, so I gotta check on my channel real quick because it seems like I'm streaming to YouTube twice. I don't know what the hell is up with that, so let me like real quick check if there's like 2 streams on my channel for any reason, because if there is, that's probably not great. Can I see that in like my live streams or anything? Yeah, no, I am live twice. Probably don't want to be. So I'm going to... If there's anybody watching on the second live stream, I'm about to take that offline. There's 3 people watching on the other live stream as well. Well, fuck. At this point, I don't even know which one it is. I think... yeah. So I'm going to take this one offline. And there's going to be like just the normal like event that gets turned into a VOD as well. Apparently you can also live stream like to a channel rather than to an event on YouTube. I don't know how any of this works. I suppose there is something to that. But I don't think the stream that I just ended will automatically get turned into a VOD. If it does, I'm going to remove it. Anyway, so AI time. We did a little bit of... I haven't looked into the cloth physics stuff for this guy yet between streams because it's been like 2 days. And I have a life. I say literally after dropping a screenshot in the Discord of me getting a good drop in RuneScape. So that kind of negates any claims that I may have a life, I would say. But I've had like other stuff to do than looking into that. I've been looking a little bit into Godot because if you are in the Discord, which I think most of you people are, I'm closing a couple of things here that I'm no longer working on. There we go. You'll have seen last night I was playing around a little bit with Godot. I think after we finish this boss fight, we might do a couple of streams of me just messing about and making something small and fun in that, because that could be an interesting, fun video. Anyway, let's get started on this boss fight. So this is where we left off. We now have the update boss info service, which updates the HP percent, all that stuff. I'm not going to go over it. If you want to, well, I was going to say if you want to know what this does, watch the last stream, but I really wouldn't recommend watching that because it was a mess. But it'll become apparent as we go on here. So we have 2 substates. One for passive, which is going to run this tree, which is just going to make it stop moving, play an animation, wait for amount of time that is linked to a blackboard key, that being the passive wait time, and then continue on moving. It's quite simple. Today we're going to go into the other side of things and do its aggressive behavior, because that is going to be like the actual behavior of the fight. So let's copy this over and call this Reaper Aggressive. That's probably misspelled. I don't really give a damn. And here we're going to need to think real quick, because I didn't really think this through too much. But before I forget, we're going to go back into like the parent tree, and we're actually going to set this to Reaper Aggressive before I forget it. So now it will actually go back and forth. Okay. So Does this even set him back to aggressive afterwards as well? We'll look into that at a later date. If it doesn't, it'll probably become apparent fairly quickly. The aggressiveness. Okay, so what he needs to do is he needs to follow. He just needs to move around for a certain amount of time. Then he needs to attack. And then he needs to go back to... So this, the basic loop that he does when he's aggressive, right? We have... Didn't we literally just delete this? No, apparently we didn't. We have a sequence of just wait for time on blackboard. And that's going to be... no, actually, that's not what we're going to do. We're going to, for now, we might make a new blackboard key for this, but for now we're just going to wait. And we're going to wait for like 10 seconds plus or minus 2 for the time being. I'm also going to open Zoom it so that I can zoom in. We might make this into a blackboard key at some point as well, where as the fight progresses, he does less moving and more attacking. For now, we're just going to go with a static 10 seconds plus minus 2. And then we want to play... or do we have like an attack? Trigger attack task. Attacks. These are animation montages, right? Yeah, I don't think that's what I want to do. I think what I want to do is... I did call it something like play montage. Did I call it play montage? Montage to play? No. Ability? Did I call it something? Doability, that's what I called it. And there we have this array with a handful of abilities that we can do. So we'll just check one of these abilities. It'll do at random. So I think I called these Reaper Dash Attack 1. Reaper Dash Attack 2. And then Reaper Dash Slow Attack. That's... is that the same? Or is that for... No, that is still for the boss fights. Okay, so we'll do one of those 3 abilities at random. Then it'll probably like wait for 1 second plus or minus 0.2. And then the whole sequence will restart. That's the basic loop, anyway. Also, hello everybody joining in today. So yeah, this is the basic loop. He moves, he attacks, and then he waits, and then it restarts. We're going to build this out a little bit more in depth in a second. Because I also want him to, when he's actually close to the player, he's always going to be moving toward the player, like in that circular movement, right? So if he's actually within a certain distance of the player, I want to cancel this and just do one of the attacks right away. So let's make a selector real quick. And I guess we just do ability and... sorry about that. We add a decorator for the blackboard and we simply check the distance to player. Probably also want to make that a sequence actually, because we want to make him wait for like a moment afterward as well. So let's just add that waiting node, which... Again, we might hook up to a variable at some point. For now, that's just going to be a constant. So we first check whether or not the distance to player is less than, let's say, 400. That's just a guess, if I'm being honest with you. It's going to do this because it doesn't need to do the whole moving toward you thing. And that should also then abort the lower priority. It doesn't need to abort self. I don't even think it can really abort self. Or maybe it should abort self when it is waiting. No, you should have an opportunity to run away if you want to after he attacks. So it shouldn't abort self. It's just when it's doing like any of this, and you get closer than 400 units away, it should abort that other sequence. I've had issues in the past, I can remember, with aborting sequences. Like when a sequence starts, it always finishes. But that might only be when you try to abort it from within the sequence, not from outside. We're going to find out! And then we also want to like build in some stuff. We might want to make this its own subtree, to be honest with you. Does it make sense? I don't know that that makes sense. Like the whole subtree thing doesn't actually matter that much, because we could very much just like do this, right? It's just a like this is essentially this is exactly the same. This is just for organizational purposes. So we don't really need that to be a subtree. Because the idea was... Yeah, I don't think we need that to be a subtree, because it's not going to be complex enough to the point where that is actually like all that relevant. Yeah, let's just do it like this. I like having everything in one tree if I can. And this is just one sequence, so like, this should be fine. And can we then set state or something like that? Set boss state enum at the end. So we didn't actually do that yet. And then that should then go back to like aggressive, right? So yeah, this makes a bit more sense to me, having it all within this one tree. We might go back to subtrees at some point if it grows out of proportion, but I don't think it will. Now we also need to update the distance to the player, but luckily I already have a service for that, I think. Distance to player, update that. And we're going to be updating that a little bit more regularly, like 4 times a second. Don't need random deviation here. Self-active key I don't think gets used. Player is player. Hopefully I have code in place somewhere to set the value of that. We're going to figure that out at some point, surely. Then we have the distance to player, and then another blackboard key, which I don't think I have hooked up to anything in the code there at all. So hopefully this doesn't interfere like it did last time with 2 services running at the same time. I don't know. Let's get rid of the passive and aggressive states, just to clean up my workspace a little bit. Now we also... we don't have an ability coded for this yet, but we have like his special attack, which only should... he should only do when he's under a certain percentage of HP. So that much is relatively easy. The thing is, where do we want to put that in like the priority of this tree? I'm thinking... when he does this attack, we actually put in a selector first, and we check whether or not that attack is off cooldown. If it is off cooldown, we do that special attack. If it is not off cooldown, we do one of the other attacks. And I think the way we do that cooldown is with a we can just set a cooldown on this. I don't know why. Is there a reason I used cooldown by tag before? I don't remember. I don't remember. It probably is. We're probably going to find out why I did it that way. For now, we don't even have that ability yet, though. So don't worry about it. Observer abort. I don't think I want this to abort anything. The cooldown time is going to be... Oh, it's probably because it had random deviation. Right, that's probably why I did cooldown by tag. Like tag cooldown. This has... No, it does not. Set tag cooldown, we can... Huh. Well, in that case, I have no idea why I didn't do that before. The cooldown here should probably be... Frankly, I think that should be a variable as well. But that means that we have to make this... That shouldn't actually be that big a deal. We can just make a child of this and probably just like link a Blackboard key into it. For now, what we're going to do... Well, somebody's fucking dying outside. For now, what we're going to do is we're going to just set this at like 45 seconds. And maybe we'll forget and just keep it at that. But also, this is actually important. We need to check the HP percentage for the boss fight. And we need to do that first. So we want to check whether or not the percentage is below... let's say 60%. So the first phase of the boss fight, he's not going to do this at all. Then in the second phase, we have like a little bit of wiggle room before he starts doing this. And then at 60%, he starts doing this. Every 45 seconds, as long as he's aggressive. That does feel a little bit too static, maybe. In my mind, but we don't like. We should just play around with this. We also should not have this connected yet, because I don't have any abilities here to execute. So can we please just like, how do we? Yeah, that's how we disconnect. Alt click. So that's just going to be there for future reference, and I think that is the basic setup of the fight. Really, from there it is just. Again, mostly in the update boss info, when it reaches 70%, the state timer duration is going to go down to this, and then it's going to go down to this, and then it's going to go down to this. I just did realize, though, I don't think that these things have default values, right? So what happens when these are over 100? Or when the thing is still at 100 to like 70%. I'm not sure. I think we saw what that did last time. And I just didn't pay attention to it, potentially. So let's just run this real quick. Also, let's save everything, just in case. And see what that does. So... Its aggression duration gets set to 60 seconds. Its state timer is running. Its passive wait time is 1 second. So by default it gets set to... Okay, that must mean there's still something wrong with... There's a lot of things wrong with this, actually. Oh, it's trying to set the wrong enum key. So that's an issue. That's still not the issue that we are looking into. Must be something wrong with my code. Yeah, play montage on wave. We'll look into that at some other time. Still a good thing to test though, whether or not it now goes into the other state. So it does that, it does that. State passive. Why does it not head into the aggressive state? Because the set boss enum is expecting a different kind of enum. No, I don't think that really matters. I mean, we can try. We're going to need to change up the night boss at some point anyway, because of all the like fundamental changes to everything that we're doing here anyway. But now we get passive aggressive or dead, so we can set this to aggressive. And maybe now it does work because it is trying to apply the right kind of enum. Yep, okay, so now it's changing him to aggressive. At which point, if we just... That was actually good. So, yeah, when he gets close enough, he actually just goes in for the attack. But now he is just waiting in the sequence. Hold on, I need to... Okay, so that means he's moving toward us, and then he's like chasing us. At some point he's going to go into doing his ability, but it doesn't actually show that in the behavior tree, which is kind of weird. At 60 seconds now, when we reach that in the timer, he should be going to his passive state again. Like, for literally 1 second, which is too short. Okay, that works. That also works when we get very close to him while he's in an aggressive state. I mean, he can't damage me yet, so that's certainly something. There's also this weird. There's also this weird thing with the. Yeah, so that value for 400 just should be lower, I think, and then the wait time afterwards should be longer. So we like do ability. This should be like 550, and then he should wait for like 2 seconds. I don't know, it seems like he's not doing the waiting to begin with, if I'm being honest with you. And then we also... Okay, so what is this ability that is not play montage and wait? Does one of my abilities not have a montage in it? That would explain that error. Let me check that out. Here's has an attack montage. That has an attack montage. That has an attack montage. So what the fuck are you on about? No, seriously, what, how? Message log, right? Yeah. Oh, and task is... Create wait proxy return value, but play montage is not valid pending kill garbage. Oh, so it's trying to end. Okay, that is not an issue, but we probably should put a validation check before that. If it is valid, we end the task. If it is not valid, we just move on. If we try to end it while it's already like being killed, that potentially creates issues. It shouldn't, but it could. So let's put in a little bit of protection. Okay. I'm going to put this behavior tree on my second monitor real quick. You guys won't be able to see it. I need to set up like a stream thing where I can show the second monitor as well somehow, maybe. But realistically, for that, I need a third monitor to have OBS open on. So I don't know. Maybe at some point I'll look into that when I have a third monitor, but that's not going to be anytime in the near future. I just need to be able to check what happens in the behavior tree a little bit more like smoothly than we've been doing so far. So we definitely want this guy to actually start as aggressive, I think. Okay, then we do that, and then he immediately starts following me again. So that wait node also needs to be longer. Yeah, so the issue, I understand what the issue is now. The issue is that this wait node, both of these, this one and this one, they don't start when the ability finishes. They start when this task finishes. And this task finishes. Holy crap. This task finishes when the ability is activated. Plus 0.2 seconds. For whatever reason. So we either need to improve this this task, or we just need to add some build-in time here for the wait task. What I'm thinking we should probably do is get default values out of this class. That's not great. It's not what I had in mind. What is this? This is a gameplay ability class reference. So what we probably should do is we should cast that to a like dash. Gameplay ability Reaper dash. Only if the activation was successful, otherwise we don't really care. And if we do that, then we get default values. There we go. We have the attack montage, get length, get play length, and that's how long we delay this for. So now still doesn't include the dash plus the... Okay, there's a couple of things going on here that I have to think about. This is better. This is an improvement. This is not going to fix it, because if we open that ability, which is, I think, this one maybe. Yeah, so what happens here is a lot of math. What happens here is we start with a animation montage, dash montage, right? And either when that finishes or when this apply root motion to force reaches its destination, which is a variable amount of time. Then we play the attack animation. So there's a good potentially second or second and a half, but maybe as little as almost no time. that is variable aside from how long the attack montage itself is for these attacks. So that results in the issue that we don't know how long the ability will be. Can I... Let me think. Let me think. Because we can't assign to an event dispatcher based on a class. We need to have the actual object for that. But this doesn't even return like a handle, let alone an object. Activate, try activate ability by yeah, all of these just return a bool. So how do I get a... Because surely there is an object reference for that ability, right? Because it still is like an object in and of itself. So... Has anybody found an issue or a solution to this issue? Unreal gameplay ability system, event dispatcher inside ability. Because that is what I want to do, if it wasn't clear. If the dispatcher is not, there's not what I'm looking for. Ability handle. Do we have like an... I see a lot of my own content here. That's actually kind of nice. But class attributes and skills. Unreal gameplay ability system. Ability event dispatcher. I'm gonna event dispatcher. I'm gonna try just that one more time. Okay, what is this person saying? Gameplay ability, activate ability from event is only triggered if event activate ability is not overridden, but whatever. Grammar Nazi. That's not what I am looking for. So yeah, I don't know if there is a convenient way. I'm using the gameplay ability system, yeah. Also, hello, the Kiwi Kingdom. Love your name. Gameplay ability system isn't that bad. It's probably easier than making it yourself entirely within Blueprint. You do need a little bit of C++ to set up like a handful of things for gameplay ability system, which it can be a pain if you don't know C++, but you don't need to know like that much. You just need to understand like a little bit of like boilerplate code and setup and stuff like that, and from there most of it is done in Blueprint, so I would still say give it a chance. Anyway, so I think for now, I think for now what we're going to do is we just will get the play length for the animation that we're doing, and then we are just simply going to add like a 1.5 seconds to it or something like that. And just kind of hope that that is all that we need. I think that should be fine. I think it's not great, but I think it's good enough. And you know, what's that saying? Perfection is the enemy of good enough, or something like that. Or perfection is the opposite of finished, something along those lines. Okay, let's have you attack me. And then immediately, okay, so then you go into the 2 second or so wait. You immediately still do go into the wait. You don't actually... Oh, no. Okay. I will actually just show you on screen, because otherwise this is probably not that interesting to look at. So if we look at the ability here, it's going to stick around in this state for like a bit. Okay, it's also bugging out a little bit. And then it's going to go into the wait state instead of just immediately going into the wait state the moment it starts activating the ability. Now it waits for the amount of time that we just provided. And then it goes into the actual waiting mode. I still don't know if that's actually great to do that way, but it's probably fine. Okay, so now, I just realized there's a little issue. Which is, if we are doing this, we are dashing toward the player and attacking. But that means that we're going to get within this range, right? And then this is going to take over. So what we actually want to do is we don't want to attack here at all. We just want to dash, I think. So if we just dash here, then this part of the behavior tree will take over whenever we're close enough to do the actual attacking bit. Which also means that the attacks themselves don't need to dash, which means that we can actually properly get the amount of time. Oh, that actually works out very well. I didn't think that through, but that works out very well. So if we just like empty this array and we put just the dash into here, the gameplay ability for dash, we want to make sure that like what we're doing makes sense. So we play montage and wait. We actually don't do that anymore. We actually don't do that anymore, do we? So this has to be an entirely separate gameplay ability at this point, but we can just kinda like cut this out. We don't even need to do that end task thing anymore in that case either. We just need to can we just like do that, right? So when the root motion here stops, or when the animation is completed, I suppose, still we want to end ability. And then do we want to... I don't think we want to set it back to being on spline. So we're just going to like cut that out for the time being. So now this has been downgraded to just being a dash, which means that we're going to just like fucking dock this somewhere, so that's not in my way. And then the dash attacks, as a result, will actually not have to inherit from that at all. These can just inherit from normal gameplay ability, I think. Gameplay ability. We can reparent that, that's fine. I think actually I have an ability for enemy attack. Now I think about it, so let's... enemy... Gameplay ability, enemy damage. That's gameplay effect actually. Gameplay ability, heal enemy... attack. Maybe I don't. I should. I definitely should. Hello there, I'm going to need to code AI from a game soon. Need to learn how to handle behavior if the attack is aborted by getting an incoming hit during the attack attempt. Any advice? So yeah, you just have like a gameplay tag or a bool. I like tags. That you're watching, and let's say that this is the attack state, which it actually is. You simply just put a decorator on there for... this is why I like tags, because you can just check gameplay tags on Actor, I believe. Oh no, this one actually doesn't have an abort on it, so don't use that one. Do we have any other tag stuff? Check tags with abort, that's one that I made myself. So alternatively, let's say it's just a bool that you have that's like knocked back or was just hit or whatever, that you probably also are using in like your state machine for playing a knockback animation or something like that, I imagine. Just make that a blackboard key as well, and set it as a blackboard based condition on your attacking state, and then set it to abort itself when that key is set to set. So if we just have like, I have like an attacking state here. No, you probably should just have like a knockback pool. But if imagine for a second that this is that this says knockback, you want to check whether or not knockback is set. If knockback is not set, sorry. So you want to check whether or not it's not set. That will allow you to go through into this state. If you then set the observer abort to self, it will abort itself. So it will stop being in this state when it notices that the condition for this blackboard base condition node has changed. So that's similar to what I'm doing here, but like the opposite. Right here, I'm checking whether or not the distance to the player is less than 550. And if it is, what I do is all these blue nodes that you see over here get aborted. So no matter where it is, whether or not it's in the weight or in the doability portion, the moment we get closer than 550 units, it aborts all this and forces into this state. Okay, so next is if I have a BT task, etc. made in C++, right? Is it possible to use them to try activate ability class, etc. to call out gas still? If you have any idea, in theory, I could scrape stuff and do it all in BP. I mean, there's nothing in Blueprint that you can't do in C++, because anything you do in Blueprint was originally written in C++. So if you prefer doing it in C++, you can. Like the only thing that is going to limit you is if you're doing something in Blueprint that might not be possible in C++. The other way around, that doesn't happen. In the end, everything runs on C++. Well, 99% of stuff in Unreal runs on C++. Some things run C#, but that's not relevant right now. Anything that gets built into your game runs on C++. So you can just activate an ability through C++. If I have an attack task I done on C++, yeah, you can just do that, right? I mean, you can just make your... I have them in Blueprint because I like doing them in Blueprint. But if I go to like my do ability task, here, what it does is I have a array of potential abilities for this task to execute. It just picks a random one and tries to activate ability by class on the ability system component of this specific enemy. You can do like literally just the same thing here and write it in C++ instead. So that would be something fairly simple to do. And then I add some other stuff here for the delay and stuff. But you should be able to do that. For AI behavior tree task stuff, it's a little like 50-50 for me whether or not I think Blueprint or C++ makes more sense. Like for this update bus info, we wrote this in C++. Because it just made more sense to me because we're dealing with like a lot of data and a lot of variables. But for something like this do ability task, which is just like do A, then do B, then do C, it's more of a script than like a program, if that makes sense. I like doing it in Blueprint. So things that have to like work sequentially or have like branching paths, which is nicely visualized in Blueprint, I tend to do in Blueprint. When I'm working with a lot of data, I tend to prefer C++. Anyway, what were we doing? I don't think so. Don't quote me on this. I'm not entirely sure, but I don't think your behavior tree restarts if you abort tasks. So if I abort like these tasks over here, I don't think it starts all the way up at the root again. I think it just it starts back at like the branching location of like where the abort took place. So again, you can see here if I select this, all of these nodes are blue because these are the ones that are getting aborted. I think it starts it back from this location. So if you have any other blackboard conditions above this, I think those won't matter until you actually restart. And you only restart, I believe, in a behavior tree once you actually like reach a leaf, which is one of the tasks. Don't 100% quote me on that. I'm not like 1000% sure on that, but like 90-ish% sure still. Anyway, what were we doing before I started to just like answer questions? We were making this AI. I remember that much. Oh yeah, the attacks. We were doing the attacks. Redoing the attacks. Yes. I remember now. Yeah, so let's real quick look into the knight attack. And see what that inherits from. Because, we also want to like add gameplay tags. We'll worry about that later. Class defaults. No class settings. Gameplay. Ability. Play basic attack animation. Yes, okay, so we do have something like that. Okay. Let's reparent them to those then. I already have this one open. Play basic attack animation. If we go to that one, this is the thing that, yeah, so this does the add gameplay tag thing. That's nice, which I don't know why I set it up this way, because we literally have like a system for that here, ability tags and stuff. I guess I set it up like this so I don't forget to do it. Maybe, I don't know. Then we set the actor's rotation, we play the attack montage, we wait and deal for damage, which is its own event here that does the damage dealing, and ability, and ability will remove the loose gameplay tags. I still don't know why we bother doing it that way, but sure. Yeah. So the one thing that I'm really looking into still, like in the back of my mind while we do all this, is I really, really would like if I could like send a message in some way from a gameplay ability into a behavior tree task, because I would very much like to be able to say, hey, when the ability finishes, then finish the ability, like the behavior task, instead of doing it in this wacky ass way. We need to cast it to something else now. Cast to play basic attack animation. I don't think that will work, right? Will it work? I suppose we'll... I don't know if that's what I wanted. I want to get play length, I think. So yeah, now the question is, will it... Will it get the value of the actual class, or will it get the value of just like the base class? I don't know how that works, if I'm being real with you. This might not work very well. And again, if I just could like send a delegate from my ability through to my task, all this bullshit wouldn't be necessary. And I'm sure something like that should be possible, because it's such an obvious thing that you would want to be able to do, right? How's your damage system build? Also in BP or through gameplay ability? Through blueprints in gameplay ability. My entire damage system, that's kind of the thing with gameplay abilities. You can like make your own just have like a couple of float values for like your health and mana and stuff. But gameplay ability really kind of wants you to use its own attribute system, because it just plays well together. So I do use the attribute system. So I have an attribute set, a poorly set up attribute set, to be frank with you, because I have a entire separate attribute set for the enemies and one for the player, while they do share a little bit of stuff. But then in like the basic attack animation, that like all my enemy attacks inherit from this ability, and then add some stuff on top of it, or do some stuff. we have this function here, wait for and deal damage. So this just waits for a gameplay event, which will get sent through when like the damage hitbox overlaps with the player. That will then apply the set player knockback. So the player has a knockback value on it as an attribute that gets set. Then it gets knocked back through a gameplay ability, and then I have a gameplay effect that deals damage to him. And then I just simply, probably could do this in the gameplay effect to be honest with you, but then I just check, hey, did that lower my health to under 0? If it did, I kill the actor, which then like does a lot of like other gameplay stuff. So that's how that is set up. So now let's try to get back into what we were doing. How to get an enemy to dynamically block an incoming hit, if possible, regardless of the current. It would be the same thing. How in the world you would detect him wanting to block something is the difficult part there. But once you have him deciding that there's an attack, or noticing that an attack is incoming and that he can block it, which you can do through like a service. A service is just something that, as long as you're running through this particular node, this will run every X amount of time. So this service over here that I have, this runs every 0.5 seconds, and this one down here runs every 0.25 seconds, so twice a second and 4 times a second. You can just do some stuff there where he like checks, for instance, if there's any nearby players, and if there's any nearby players, are they in like an attack animation? Your player then should have like a bool on it or a gameplay tag, whether or not it is attacking. And if it is attacking, set one of the blackboard keys that you have for that, which is like noticed attack, a bool, to true. And then again you get the same idea with just have like a very high priority task somewhere in your behavior tree, which says, hey, when I notice an attack happening toward me, abort everything that's lower priority than me and do like the blocking thing. And then of course how you program it, how he blocks and stuff, I would argue that that is probably, to make that feel good, is probably the most difficult part. Setting up the like AI behavior for that seems pretty like, if you just do all that, that should like give you a good base. Now I'm going to try to, for once in my life, focus for longer than 2 seconds. And actually like hook some things up before they disappear. Oh, I already pasted that in apparently. Yeah, okay, so at the end of this ability, we go back to being on the spline, which is going to be an issue because we don't have a Reaper balls anymore. We can do that. No, that's fine. Create a variable for that. We can set that variable. And we can cast to BP Reaper boss. Get the avatar. Not like the Nickelodeon avatar. Although it would be really cool to make a game for Avatar that like doesn't actually suck. Because most of the Avatar games really suck. Except the one Avatar game, the Legend of Korra game, made by Platinum Games. Yes, that exists. I think we have like a montage to play or something. Yeah, there we go. Like Platinum Games at some point made a beat 'em up Legend of Korra game, and it's actually pretty good. It's probably the best Avatar game, and it's no longer in circulation. They took it off every fucking store for some reason, probably because like their contract ran out or something. So it's actually really difficult to get nowadays. That's the only actually good Avatar game, and it's kind of upsetting. Yeah, not a fan of any of that. So yeah, we probably can just then say, hey, dash attack 2 and slow attack do the same thing. Oh, hold on. One of these is where we left. Slow attack, attack 2, dash attack 1. There we go. Let's do on blend out. We also need to end the ability still. And then we might as well like wait for and deal damage. Put that in there as well. That completes that ability more or less. And then we can just say, hey, attack number 2 and slow attack just inherit from Reaper attack 1. I think it's called Reaper dash attack 1, right? That's what we called that. Let's close a couple of these tabs that I'm no longer using. So yeah, it's Reaper dash attack 1, and then night attack we're no longer using either. So with all that, if we go back to the class defaults, now we can set the montage to play. Reaper quick attack 2 montage, I think is what it's called. I will worry about like filling in all the other stuff in a moment. I just want to get this back to a place where it will function, and then we'll worry about the other stuff afterward. So we have Reaper dash attack 1, class defaults, slow attack. There we go. I have a bit hardcore thing. An enum of attack state, start, activate, recovery, attacker, an event, not dispatcher, that runs upon attack, landed, hitbox overlaps with the target character. That works. Like specifically with a fighting game, having the information of what stage of the attack you're in could be like a good thing, right? So for instance, I imagine if you're making a fighting game, like in the anticipation part of the attack animation, you probably still want to be able to hit a character, but the moment he goes into like the actual like throwing a punch, maybe you won't be able to like hit him anymore, so you have to like block to counter him. Is what I imagine. So like having those different states like as an enum that you then set, probably I'm assuming through like animation notifies, makes perfect sense to me. Yeah, no, that's definitely a good idea. Well, definitely, I don't know like your code base, but that sounds like a good idea. You know what else sounds like a good idea? Taking a quick bathroom break. I've been going at this for an hour. I'm drinking a lot of water because it's been quite hot today. Well, it's been about like 17, 18 degrees Celsius, but I didn't open my window, so it's been hot in my room today. So I'm back. Yeah. So it's been like, as I said, I think the hottest it was like today is probably like 19 degrees C, maybe up to 20. To this moment, it's still 23 in my room. So, actually, now that I'm taking a quick break anyway, I'm gonna refill my water bottle real quick as well, and then we'll move on. Okay. Important to not die, you know? Drinking water. Anybody watching this, make sure you're drinking enough water. That's like a thing people spam in Twitch chat usually, right? Okay. That in theory should have this working again now, because we have our 3 attacks and our dashing ability. So this will just dash and get overridden by this node over here and do the attack. So let's just test whether or not that is the case. I'm going to put my behavior tree again up on my second monitor to make sure that that also like actually happens. Quite relevant. But also the most interesting part is it's still going to be a gameplay screen, so don't worry, you're not missing out on much, you're just missing out on a couple of... Okay. It's got 2 states active at the same time, so that is fucking interesting. I'm assuming that's a visual bug with the behavior tree. At some point he's going to start dashing toward me, surely. The fuck? Okay, hold on. I'm going to zoom in a little bit on this. How even does this? While also this is highlighted. Like, what even is happening here? It's just got 2 states. Well, 1 state here in the sequence, but like 2 of these active at the same time. What? Squeeze me. I suppose if this cast fails, we also want to end the ability, actually. Okay, that's not how that should work. Like, not at all. I'm assuming it was just... Yeah, it was probably just, like, a little bit buggy. Now it's doing the wait first, and then in a moment it's going to do the dash, which should only do the dashing until it gets... It tried to do the dash there, but it didn't do anything, I don't think. Oh! You know what's fucking me up? We still have the set timer by event running, so it's still doing an attack randomly every 20 seconds. But that cast doesn't seem to work. But I don't think I care is the thing, do I? Because I can just make this... Yeah, I can just make this delay a ridiculous amount of time. So if you just remove all this, I can just say, hey, delay for 5 seconds before you end this task. Because it's gonna get interrupted anyway. Is that a, like, is this bad code? Yes. Do I care? No. Yes, it is live. Hello. So yeah, now it should do the dash properly. Maybe. Hopefully. Hold on. No. Because even if the task doesn't finish, the... Oh! I understand what the issue is. We never gave it the, like, just normal dash ability. So we never went in here somewhere. We have an array with abilities to grant on startup. So I always forget about that. Honestly, probably what I should do instead is I just should grant these on runtime. Because I forget this literally every time. So what I probably should do is like undo ability, right? Is get the random ability, and I think I can like grant or give ability or something like that. Give ability. Like I should just give the ability before trying to activate it. Which also gives me a ability spec handle. Hold on. This might actually do a thing. Because if that gives me an ability spec handle, that is actually straight up what I want. I'll go over the behavior tree in a second to catch everybody up to date. Yeah, very much Kiwi Kingdom. If it works, it works. And I would go as far as, you say you don't touch it anymore. I say you don't look at it anymore, because if you give it a funny look, it might just decide to stop working. Anyway, so that gives us a ability handle. Where the hell did that blueprint go? Yeah, so this gives us an ability handle, which... Get gameplay ability from spec handle? I think this lets us cast and get a event dispatcher. Okay. I think that's good. We need to like pass in the ability system component as well. But now, if I were to say Reaper dash on ability and do we have and ability, we can call out to this, which actually this probably just has a delegate of its own already. I just realized probably does. So we can assign or bind gameplay ability object reference, pointer to gameplay ability objects. So if we cast to dash, Reaper dash, we're getting somewhere. And then I'll show the behavior tree. So if we cast a Reaper dash and then we try to assign or bind so it probably does need its own on ability and I mean it literally does have a on and ability, right? So why can't I like assign? It's apparently just not blueprint exposed or something. Doesn't matter. And then here we can assign to it, right? Yeah, so assign that to it. But only if the ability activation is true. And then we can finish execute once the ability is actually done. So that should work. Almost. I don't have any EQS happening in this behavior tree. The current value of ability spec handle pin is invalid. Ability spec handle in action gameplay must be wired into... Oh, it doesn't have any execution pins going through it. No, okay, that is fair. Yeah, there we go. So that should, in theory, let's also like throw in a print string real quick just to make sure that this is getting triggered the way I want it to be triggered. So, hell yeah. And then we can probably get rid of that. Now this needs to be the general. Let's also hook this up for the time being. This needs to be the general gameplay ability that I use for everything instead of this very specific one. But for testing purposes, we're just going to do it in here right now. Because that might have just gotten me the thing that I wanted. And then we then also need to remove the gameplay ability so that we can re-add it, presumably, when we go through that again. Okay, so that doesn't actually... But I think it might be because the ability is not ending. Yeah, so the task isn't ending. But is that because my ID doesn't work or because I'm not... Now I'm ending the ability on timeout or on animation complete. So... ability end. I thought I did something there. I thought I had something. But maybe I didn't. So does the ability end? Okay, the ability does end. My ID just doesn't work. That's too bad. Maybe there's a built-in thing for that. Anyway, my behavior tree real quick. I was going to show that off. So we have this base selector here, which every half a second updates the boss's info, which is its HP percentage, how much HP percent it still has left. It has a timer, which switches it from its aggressive state back to its passive state. We have the boss state, so whether or not it is aggressive, passive, or technically dead is also one. I don't know if we're going to be using that. We have a state timer, that's just a timer that counts up to this state timer duration. And we have a passive wait time, which is a key that I use in the passive state for how long it should wait before it moves back to the aggressive state. And then we have the boss state info here, which is just an array, which says, hey, if you're under 70% health, the state time duration, which is one of those keys, gets set to this value. Passive wait time gets set to that value. But if you're under 50% health, this, and if you're under 10% health, we do that and that. This does not quite function yet, apparently. So yeah, and then the passive state is just stop moving, play a montage, which is going to be like a taunting animation, which we don't have yet. Then you wait for the amount of time that is set in the passive wait time key. Then we enable the movement again, and we set the state enum to being aggressive. And then the aggressive state for now is just move. This waiting node is just like moving. The movement itself is done in the actual C++ class. And then after 10 seconds plus or minus 2, do the dash ability. And then at the same time, this one is looking out for when you're close to the player, do an attack ability. Choose one of these three at random. And then wait a little bit again, and so on and so forth. Eventually, this like special attack is going to get put in there as well for when there's less than 60% HP left. But we don't have that special attack yet, so that's not hooked up at the moment. That is the basic overview of what we have right now for the behavior tree. Back to what I was doing. So yeah, that doesn't seem to fully work, which is a little bit too bad. This doesn't seem relevant anymore either. Basic Reaper not relevant either anymore. Do ability. Yeah, so we have this ability handle, but can we like... What can we do with it? We can clear it, which probably just means remove it, right? And that's kind of all there is to it. So, provides a gameplay ability object associated with the ability spec handle. This can be either an instance ability or a shared ability. The class defaults objects. Is the cast failing? Is that what's happening? No focus. Where do you do focus? I set the focus in the C++ class for... focus doesn't really matter in this case because it's just that guy and me in here, so I don't really need to worry too much about it. The only reason that I set focus is to have him like automatically... Okay, that cast fails like horribly. The only reason that I have the focus set at all for him is so that he always rotates toward me automatically. Then again, I might replace that with a few lines of like just interpolating rotation so I have more control over it. And remove focus altogether because there's no real need for it. Yeah, it's base class as a C++ class. So we've got the blueprint class here for him, which is just like this. And there's a little bit happening here. Like we set this event by timer to test his attacks, which we don't need anymore. Oh, we don't even set it in C++. We just literally set it in here. And we set the color for the weapon trail. Everything else happens in the C++ class. So that is in here. We do all the other stuff for like moving him along a spline. So the way he moves is we've got a spline here. And he just moves along that spline over and over and over again in the direction that is the shortest distance to where the player is. So we've got a couple of functions to do all that. Okay, so that cast fails. That is potentially the issue. But why does that cast fail? Because that should be fine. But it's not. So, the fuck do I know? It also runs it like 5 times for some reason. I don't know why that is happening, but can we like just get an ability from this? Like get ability from spec handle? Gameplay ability object reference. I mean, that should work. Right? It clearly doesn't. Can be that the cast fails on the first tick, but success on the other cast. So there's only... It should only do it once to begin with, to be honest with you. And there's no reason for it to fail at all. Well, clearly there is a reason for it to fail. Apparently that doesn't inherit the way that I thought it would. So we're going to Google that real quick. Do you think it turned out to be more complicated than you expected to make AR, or is all fun and games? I mean, it's always everything you do always has some complexity more to it than you imagine when you begin with it. And when I started making this boss AI like 2 weeks ago on stream, I thought I was just going to do something similar to what I did for my last boss fight, but then I was like, actually, let's build a proper framework for all the future bosses as well. So we spent a while doing that, and then now I'm actually trying to implement all that stuff. So it's a little bit more work than I initially thought, but it's going to make the future bosses, and there's still like 5 boss fights left that I have to do, maybe some mini bosses that can use the same framework as well. It's going to make those significantly smoother to program, so I don't think it was a bad call. Unreal gameplay ability system, get gameplay ability from handle. I'm always mind blown by the lack of documentation on this goddamn system. Like when I look for something like this, I get Reddit results, which is fine, but I also get only Reddit results that are asking questions that are totally unrelated to what I'm asking, meaning that there's just not a lot of people asking these questions, maybe? I don't know. Yeah, it's just people trying to learn gameplay ability system, which, hey, I've got content for that, so go ahead and watch that, but yeah, this is all not related to what I'm... gameplay ability. Yeah, this is Epic's own... Okay. Give ability and activate once. I mean, that could be something, right? Give ability and activate once? Like, give ability and activate once. That also gives you the ability. I'm going to... No, the cast was failing to begin with, so that surely can't be the issue. I was going to say I'm going to move this back there so that it's trying to like assign before trying to activate, and I'm still going to do that. Even if the cast fails, we're going to do that. It's a little messy in Blueprint, but this is kind of the upside to Blueprint as well, that you can very easily, quickly clear ability we'll worry about later. Switch stuff around like that. Gameplay ability function is your C++ ability system. I mean, there's a little bit of Blueprint, a little bit of C++, a little bit of everything. Yeah, my antivirus also tries to scare me into getting like a VPN ability. And hell yeah. Okay, so it did a thing. It did a thing. It did a hell yeah. I don't know what a hell yeah means. But it did a thing. On ability end. Okay, so that works. But it also said cast failed, right? Hold on. Did it say cast failed, or did I just... Let's try again. It printed out 2 things, but that might have been... Oh, it's probably ability and hell yeah. It didn't fail the cast. So that actually did end up solving my issue, which means that I can now actually send through event dispatchers from abilities. Ability and hell yeah. Okay, so the only issue is that it doesn't actually end the task, I don't think. Oh no, it is in the waiting task now. Hold on. I think it just straight up works then. I think it just straight up works. It just doesn't move back to being on the spline. Oh yeah, no, that makes sense. No, we probably should set MB is on spline. No. On spline. Probably should set that back to true in case we don't actually like do an attack. Actually, we have something for that in here somewhere, I believe. Yeah, so we should do that. Will it accept that? It does. Cool. So now it will also go back to being on the spline after it fails to attack me. Which it, for the most part, shouldn't. But that's still... yeah, we just don't share when we find the answers. I do. I try to. In the form of YouTube videos. Not on the Unreal forums, to be fair. But that's also because I don't like a lot of like the vibe on the Unreal forums. Like a lot of times when you Google things and people have questions, the answer ends up being, you should just know this. Or what you're doing is wrong to begin with. Or, and to be fair, I do give that as an answer in the Discord sometimes. Like, okay, but why are you doing it this way? But I also try to like explain, okay, I wouldn't do it this way, but if you're going to be doing it this way, here's maybe a fix. That last part doesn't get added on like 90% of the time on the Unreal forums, and that really like aggravates me. So I don't like the Unreal forums too much. So that's why I don't go on there to share my findings. Anyway, is using the hearing sense in all your AI agents a viable option? Let's say non-complex NCPs, common crowd that reacts to gunshots. Yeah, that should be fine. That's what it's for. I personally only ever find myself actually like using the site because that's like very powerful. But you can definitely like use it like that. Obviously, if you have like 1,000 individual instances that are all listening out through like their own component and stuff, that might end up being ever so slightly laggy. But in that case, you probably want to have like a parent actor that just delegates stuff to the actual like instance things. So you have like a group where you have like one component that actually listens, and when it hears something, it gives a message like, hey, something just happened to 100 actors. If you have like 1,000, suddenly you only have 10 of those components listening out instead of actually having 1,000. You're probably going to run into other bottlenecks before this becomes an issue if you have 1,000 AI agents. But that kind of thing, like having like a manager for groups of AI can be really, really helpful. Because that way they all have a good way to communicate with each other as well. Like if you have, for instance, like if you have like I saw an example a while ago of somebody who was making like a spaceship fleet. I don't know exactly how it worked, but I imagine like if for any reason ship number 1 wants to know the position or the health or the whatever of like ship number 7, it probably asks that through that manager. And the manager can say, okay, you're going to now fly in this formation. And they don't need to all individually decide that. And then one of them strangely like decides to do something else because of some weird bug in your code. It's just, no, the manager says you're going to fly like this. And you only have one place to like really worry about that code. And I think for crowds, you probably can do something similar to that, where you have a number of characters that walk around and just like crowd together. Which all listen to like one manager object. Yeah, 1,000 is a way out there kind of thing. You're but even with 100, like you can still make like a system where you have like managers that manage 10 of these NPCs at a time in a certain area, so that you don't have to instance like the AI logic 1,000 or 100 times. Maybe. Kind of depends on what you want to do, really. Okay, so that works. The only thing that doesn't work is I'm actually going into the attack, and that is likely just due to this value being too low. So if we set this value to like 750 instead, maybe it will then work. And it also like takes a moment for him to actually like do anything. Okay, no, the attack abilities just straight up don't work. Oh, yeah, no, the attack abilities don't work. That makes sense, because the doability task is trying to cast to specifically Reaper Dash, and if something is not a Reaper Dash, it's going to have a bad time. So we need to change this into cast to play basic attack animation instead. And we need to put that delegate on there. So yeah, when the cast fails, we hook that up to there. We remove this, and then we take this one and play basic attack animation. We want to... Can you not copy paste delegates? You can't. Okay. Well, in that case, we're just going to make a new one. That's fine. On ability end. Do we already have an ability end? I don't think we... no, we do. We do it over here. So on ability end. We call this... Compile that. I wonder if this is going to... It's probably going to... No, it's not going to work because this is expecting a specific... Yeah. So we need to bind to on ability end. And now all my attacks should work as well again. Hopefully. It is... I've been talking about this in the Discord a lot lately. I'm going to make a video about this because people get taught to avoid casting and then kind of don't seem to. And this is like not an attack on you. So don't get this, like, don't get me wrong. I'm going to make a video about this because I do think that people in general will find this as useful information. But a lot of people seem to like understand that they shouldn't use casting, but not quite fully understand how and why. So I'm going to make a video about it, but I'm also going to talk about it real quick right now, because you asked. So casting you should avoid to avoid loading extra things into memory. The actual casting node itself, as like an operation, doesn't cost that much. It's not that bad. Like it mostly is similar to doing one of these operations on two classes. So if we have like this random class that we generate from here, like just checking, hey, is this class the same class as whatever I put into there? Yes or no? It's a little bit more heavy than that, but essentially that's what it comes down to. It's a pretty simple comparison operation at the end of the day. But then it also like outputs the casted version and stuff like that. So there's a little bit more going down under the hood, don't get me wrong, but not that much. The expensive part of a casting node is the fact that it makes a hard reference between these two classes, which means that whenever this object is loaded, it will also load whatever we're casting to. Even if we haven't gotten to that code yet, even if we're not running this code, matter of fact, in Blueprint, even if this node just hangs out unconnected, it creates a hard reference to it, which is not great, usually, because it means that we're loading something into memory, and if that thing is then also casting to like a bunch of other things, it loads all of those into memory. And if those then also cast to a bunch of other things, it loads all of those into memory. And before you know it, you get into a situation where like half your assets, or if you're like really bad with it, like every asset in your game is going to be stored in memory at all times, which, to be fair, does make your loading times non-existent, but it's not great for your memory. So that is why you want to avoid casting. In this case, we are casting to the basic attack animation gameplay ability class. After we just activated a ability, or we give and then we activate it later, long story short is we're activating this ability. So it already exists in memory because we're going to be using it. We're going to be activating the ability. So then casting to it doesn't really do much because it already exists in memory anyway. So, and then we also, I want to check whether or not I need to clear ability actually. It's a very good question, do I? Oh, this definitely needs to be hooked up, by the way. That could definitely be a problem. So yeah, that is pretty much what it comes down to with casting. Like you see a lot of casting nodes all over the place here, like I'm casting to the Reaper boss, but this is a gameplay ability that's going to be executed by the Reaper boss. So whenever this ability exists in the game, it's being spawned in by the Reaper boss. So then casting to the Reaper boss is fine, because this is never going to exist without the Reaper boss itself existing. So this doesn't actually take up any more memory. Do we have any other examples anywhere in here? Yeah, so this is check health below enemy HP. This is a behavior tree thing. This is always going to run on a behavior tree for an enemy. So again, enemy itself is the control pawn, always going to be an enemy. So casting to enemy, not a big deal, because it's always already going to be loaded into memory. I'll do you one better. Even if you like don't cast, and you would have a variable here for the enemy. So if we like promote this to variable, as enemy, whatever, and you give this a value in some other way, right? You can do that. You don't actually save anything. Because even having this variable here as like a reference, an object reference, is creating a hard reference to that class. If you want to save memory, what you do is you make a enemy object reference, but you make a soft object reference. Now we can have this thing existing here without it immediately being loaded into memory. But now before we use it, we do need to load this asset, which we can do either async, which apparently we can't do here because we're inside of a function. So if we're inside of the event graph, we can load it async. So we can load it async, which means that it's going to be loading it on a background thread and then moving on whenever it's completed. Or we can load it blocking, which will load it on the game thread, meaning that the game is going to freeze until this loading is done, at which point you get a normal object reference output, which you can just use. But yeah, so just having a non-soft reference is just as bad as a casting node. Can do it as an interface and only have the attributes in that task, but as you say, the enemy is loaded. Yeah, you can do a lot of things to avoid making these hard references, but that's kind of like the point I want to make in that video is you can avoid making these hard references and give yourself more work in doing so and not see any benefits. So when you, like, as a programmer, you are aware of, or as a game designer more so, maybe, you are aware of what kind of objects go together and what kind of objects don't. Like your program itself isn't just going to magically know that. Human intuition will let you very easily know that. So you can make the decision of, hey, I'm not going to put in all the efforts to make this not hard linked to each other with either like an interface or have like some kind of in-between object that communicates between the two of them. I'm going to just not do that because these two are always going to be loaded together. Today we talked about it in the Discord a little bit, and the example I gave was a door and like a lever. So if we have like a door, right? This is a door, a very good door. And then we have a lever with that door that opens this door. This is always going to be a package deal, right? Realistically speaking, you could make this into just one object with like this two things as different components, but maybe you want the lever to do other things. So you put an event dispatcher on the lever that says, hey, I have been pulled. The door will need a hard reference to the lever in order to subscribe to that event dispatcher. But that's not going to be a problem because whenever we have a door, we need to link it to a lever anyway. So having that hard reference doesn't matter. Just the lever could also like open a staircase, which also then will have a hard reference to the lever. But again, we're never going to have this dynamic staircase without a lever to go with it. So it's okay to make that hard reference. What you then shouldn't be doing is also making hard references the other way around. Because this lever can be spawned into like a billion different situations, and you don't want it to always load in everything that it can possibly interact with. But the things that interact with it can have hard references to it, is the basic idea. I'm glad that my stuff is helpful, and I hope that this, like me ranting about casting and memory and stuff, is also helpful, because I've been thinking about this a lot, because I've been seeing it on my videos, which it's not that bad, but I also see it on like a lot of other videos, because I also like watch other people's stuff on Unreal Engine where like there's two groups of people there, and luckily my videos usually mostly have the people under it who are like, hey, what's up with casting? I don't understand your casting. What's going on? I also see, like, again, luckily mostly in other people's videos, are people who are a little bit more rude about it and are like, no, you should never cast. This tutorial is bad because there's casting in it. And that gets a little bit on my nerves. Sometimes it happens to me too. For the most part, it doesn't, which I'm happy with. But it's made me think that I think the Unreal community as a whole probably can do with like a little bit of a refresher on, hey, sometimes casting is just okay. Because you're wasting your own time in a lot of cases if you're avoiding casting. where you really don't need to. Anyway, I was doing a thing. What was I doing? I was doing a thing. Oh yeah, I think... No, not quite. Reaper Dash should... Oh, we don't have an on ability end anymore here, which is... I guess we can make this play animation as well. And then, yeah, let's do that. Play basic attack animation. Compile. Call on ability end. That should now work as well. I interface the crap out of everything. I don't really understand this optimization stuff. Well, if you don't... to be honest with you, I think like 90% of projects in Unreal Engine, the thing that you want to be careful and like cognizant of optimizing isn't CPU stuff. All this stuff that we're talking about right now is CPU stuff and memory stuff. And memory is a thing in and of itself. The first bottleneck that most projects I think are going to run into in Unreal Engine is GPU, which is too many polygons, too high resolution textures, too many models loaded at the same time, too many textures loaded at the same time, too many particles flying around, I'd say, as I stand in like a particle thing. Assuming that those are GPU particles, you also have CPU particles, which those can bottleneck your CPU, but like all this like more code related stuff that runs on the CPU, for the most part, I don't think is the bottleneck for a lot of projects. Except if you stuff everything into event tick on every single actor in your game. Because that will bottleneck you quite heavily on your CPU quite quickly. But, and if you have a lot of navigation happening all at the same time, that also tends to like do quite badly. So yeah, okay, you do attack me, you just... Oh, it's that waiting thing, right? That's what's happening. It's just... Jesus Christ. Okay, so dash toward me, I want to see whether or not you trigger the do ability. Because 750 units should be close enough for you to trigger that. Oh, it does. So it straight up just works. It doesn't even come close to hitting me, which is a thing that we should look into. But I think 750 might even be a little too much. Like, let's go back to 600. But yeah, going back to like the whole interfacing the crap out of everything, I don't think there's really a downside to doing that, aside from wasting your own time in some scenarios. I don't think it's going to make your performance worse. So if you're like afraid that you... Yeah, that really should. You know what? Once this ability ends, we also always just do want to do an attack. I think. So just interfacing the crap out of everything, for the most part, is not going to make your performance worse. It's only going to waste your time. And like that's fine. Honestly. Yeah, what? Why didn't you like do the thing? Now you did the thing. Something's going a little iffy here. Yeah, it seems to work somewhat consistently. So why did it attack again there? That is what has thrown me off a little bit. I'm going to just zoom out ever so slightly, and I'm so glad that we don't actually have him damaging me yet, because that would be really annoying. I mean, he's throwing me all over the place, which is like also not great, obviously. Yeah, so sometimes it just doesn't want to do like the whole ability, does it? Which... Okay, let me try doing this. So on ability... Oh, it finishes execute on ability activate by class. We don't actually want to do that, do we? That might be the thing that's kind of fucking me. It should only finish executing when the ability finishes. That's why we did that whole event dispatcher bullshit. Use cards in correct order is fine if you don't make a memory tree. Yeah, that's the thing, is you do need to stay kind of on top of it. But as like a general rule, what I keep in mind is that casting from the player is indeed almost always a no-no. Casting to the player is almost always fine. Because like you're casting to the player character. The player character is always going to be in memory already, right? So and I think that kind of shows in a like bigger way how you can apply that same logic to like small situations like this behavior tree, right? If I cast from something inside this behavior tree to something that is running this behavior tree, it really is not going to matter. Okay, so yeah, the behavior kind of works. It's very easy to still run away from his attacks. But aside from that, the behavior itself seems to work quite smoothly. So that's kind of good. We're not going to get to a special ability yet today. We've been streaming for 2 hours. If I start that now, it's going to be stupidly long. And I do have like work tomorrow, so I'm not going to do that. So this one we'll get back to at a later date. For now, I guess we can just fine-tune things a little bit so that we... fucking birds. Jesus. Like the dash ability probably should like end a little bit earlier. Which means that we're dashing toward the player with like 200 units distance. I think that should be like 350 or something like that. That way he'll also move a tiny bit faster. We'll look into like the timing of it all in a second. But that way he'll start swinging earlier, which I think will make us like more... Well, it's actually not going to matter at all, is it? What the... Yeah, we also really need to make it so that we can't push him around. I don't know what the hell that is all about. He's stuck in the doability thing now. That's not good. Let's build in. I don't know what we're going to build in, actually. Never mind. That bird is really distracting me. I don't know if you can hear it. It's like right outside my window as well, so I'm sure that you can. I tend to prefer hooking a blueprint into reusable C++ function. Oh my god, okay, he's doing a thing. I mean, I do a little bit of both. I do like a lot of C++ stuff, but I also like this kind of stuff just is a lot faster to do in Blueprint for the most part. Like that's the entire reason that I use the gameplay ability systems, because like doing this linear scripting out of do A, then do B, then do C. From there, do thing number one, but in like a background thread. Do this, and when it completes, like move on to like the whole gameplay ability system is designed into okay, why are you not moving in anymore? What even are you doing? You are stuck in a do ability task here. What the hell's wrong? What is going wrong? There's worked a moment ago. What changed? Nothing changed, right? Yeah, I figure you hear the birds. There's nothing much I can do about that. If I could, I would. Trust me. So if the cast fails, but the cast doesn't fail because we're not getting the cast fail thing. We're also not getting the hell yeah thing, so I don't know about that. Okay, let's pay a little bit more attention to... Hell yeah. Let's pay a little bit more attention to what is getting printed out onto the screen. Because... Okay, so you're waiting. You're waiting. I'm probably going to make that timer a little bit shorter for debug purposes, because this is like quite long. Okay, it said something. Failed to play montage in none. Task instance name is none. So that is ability task, play montage and wait. Dash attack 1. So let's look at the class defaults here. Montage to play is none. Why? Why? I guess we just got really lucky in that other run where we just got attack number 2 and 3 every single time. And then never tried to do attack 1 because attack 1 is not valid. Well, it is now. It should be anyway. There we go. Okay. But it is stuck in the doability state again. So why would that be? I'm assuming it is because what happens is it does the attack here and then moves into here. So that probably should be like a little bit of a wait between these. Just like random deviation 0, yeah. Just like a 15th of a second. Not a 15th of a second. 0.15 seconds, which is more like 1/8 or so of a second. I don't know if that's going to make it feel weird when he dashes and attacks. But that certainly does seem to fix it. So now if he dashes and he doesn't get close enough to me, he will wait a moment before actually attacking. And then still get stuck in that state for some reason. So why does he get stuck in that state? Is it because he's doing the same ability twice and something is fucking up with that? Somehow? What happens with give ability when an ability is already... This is ignored when the actor is non-authoritative? Yeah, but that's all like multiplayer stuff. That doesn't really matter here. Server and client are the same. Same machine anyway. Let's just try to see what happens if we clear the ability when we exit this state. We do need to put in an ability system component. Because what might be happening is when it's trying to give an ability that it already has, this handle isn't doing its thing properly, which might mean that this event dispatcher isn't getting bound to properly, which then in turn would mean that the finish execute wouldn't happen. We can always put a backup here with just like a delay of like 5 seconds, which will finish the task as a backup. And players probably would never be able to tell, so probably would make that more than 5 seconds because it needs to be longer than the longest attack in the game, which is likely going to be more than 5 seconds for one of the more insane bosses later on. Like the final boss. At that point maybe I'll make specific things for the final boss. I don't know. Let's just test this for a moment. Okay, so that seems to work. Now, if we get close enough, he attacks us again. If we get close enough, he attacks us again, and we can still push him around, which is not great. And he's stuck in the attack state again. I guess in this case the ability also might have not ended because the... So, okay, we need to maybe do something in the ability instead. If we go into the play basic attack animation. Now, uninterrupted also ends the ability. Maybe we need to put uncancelled in there as well for some fucking reason. I don't really know what the difference is between cancelling and interrupting. I think interrupting is when you play another animation in the same slot, and cancelling is just cancelling. So cancelling shouldn't be what we're doing right now. So that shouldn't have impact on like literally anything that we're doing. Let's just hang out for a moment and let him attack a couple of times. So far that all seems to work. Yeah, I think that all works. So when we get close to him, that also works. It also works. But sometimes it just doesn't. Is it one specific ability that doesn't inherit from the right thing yet? Is that the issue? No, because the cast would fail if that was the case. This inherits from Reaper dash attack 1. Which should inherit from play basic attack animation. Now we've got the slow attack, which also inherits from that. So that should all inherit back to play basic attack animation. I guess maybe... No, because he doesn't get stuck on the dash. Like, if the dash was the place he got stuck, I figured maybe we need to hook up uninterrupted. But he doesn't get stuck on the dash, he gets stuck on the attacks, which is the thing that is really kind of throwing me for a loop. So, do I have any, like, weird ability in there? Dash, and then... dash attack 1, 2, and slow attack. Yeah. I use Unity version control, which is technically called as now Unity DevOps version control. I think officially before it was acquired by Unity, it was called like Plastic or something like that. But it's quite nice because it has a plugin for Unreal Engine itself, so I can just like submit content right here in Engine and view changes, and I think even like revert back. It has a limited but existing support for blueprint merging as well. I've never had to try that yet, but in theory it does. So it's good stuff. I like it. It's also version control made for game development, which means that it by default has large file support. Because I don't know, I tried to make LFS work with GitHub, and it just kind of didn't. I was using GitHub on fork, and it just kind of didn't let me do what I wanted to do. So I don't know if that was a fork thing or a GitHub thing, but I got frustrated and just changed over. Which was not a fun process, changing over version control, I can tell you that much. So yeah, but what the hell's going wrong with any of this? Like, there's no way that this is just not getting called sometimes, right? Surely that's not what's happening. Your castings fail trying to run another ability. You have no end binding finishing execute. No, that's not what that code does. I'll show you what it does do. Well, I can just do it now, right? Yeah. That's not what that does. Where is it? Do ability? Yeah, so that's not what this does. What this does is it runs the ability that I'm providing here. It's just like first on execute AI. It gives the ability, then it casts to the like base ability that all the attack animation abilities are based on, because that also has like the damage calculation stuff in it. If that cast fails, it just prints out cast fail, but it still tries to activate it. Because this cast might fail, but it still is a valid ability potentially, so it will still activate the ability. And when the cast fails, it doesn't do the bind to this event, which means that it doesn't get to the finish execute. But the only way that it doesn't get to this finish execute will be when it prints out cast fail, because there's no other execution flow, unless the cast fails here. But I can promise you it's not failing here, because this thing doesn't inherit from enemy. So that's not That's not the issue. Yeah, because if this doesn't get reached, necessarily this path has to have been taken. So what is more likely happening is that this delegate isn't calling out, which means that this ability or this event isn't running. Which I also actually do have a... Yeah, no, that makes sense, because I do have this hell yeah, and that wasn't getting printed. So that's not running. But the question is, why is that not running? Probably because the ability end itself is fucking up a little bit. Also, hello, lampshade collector. So it does a hell yeah, and then it does an attack end. And then when I get close to it, it does hell yeah and attack end. And then it like waits a moment. It does both hell yeah and attack end, but it now very much does seem stuck. Which it is. Which doesn't make a lot of sense. Because if we go back here, the fuck? What the fuck? What the hell? It only prints hell yeah. But for the most part, I imagine that a lot of the animation will be improved over time. I just need to get better at animating, or get someone to animate it for me. So yeah, that doesn't really make sense. What the fuck? How do we live in a world, right? How do we live in a world where this gets triggered and this does not? Like, it has to be because of this. But I don't think that was there when this issue initially, like, popped up. So... that can't entirely be the solution. And now it just immediately does it. Is it because... No. I was going to say, is it because it's trying to activate it twice and that's fucking it up somehow? But, I mean, it could. Let's just see if we... This is do task, right? Do ability, yeah. Because we did see before, I think, that it was getting activated like 5 times for some reason. So, when it activates, it... No, it only does it once. Did I just not hook things up? Because now it happened twice during the first time. I have no idea what's happening. How is any of this happening? It's not failing the cast. It's also not calling on ability end. Which is even weirder because it is printing this string, which happens after on ability end. I mean, I'm sure it's possible to make a planet to walk around in Unreal. I've tried to make Mario Galaxy like Gravity a bunch of times, and every time I fail, because it's actually like very complex. So if you're talking about that, there's a plugin that does it on the Unreal Marketplace. It's probably better off doing that. Yeah. If you're talking like recreating the entirety of the Earth, yeah, I don't think so. But that's just from like you have to actually like physically make it, and it's just an impossible task to do reasonably. Okay, I have no idea what the issue is here. What I do know is that we're just going to go back in here and just say, hey, we're going to do this on the timer, because I just, at this point, really don't give enough of a fuck. We can still try to do the whole giveability and clearability thing. That'll still make things a little bit smoother. Could that? No, that can't be the issue. Could it be the issue? I'm going to try one more thing. It might be getting a little bit messed up because it is... Oh, no, because... No, never mind. I was going to say because it's clearing the ability on the same frame that this event dispatcher is running, but I don't even run clear ability at all at the moment, so it's definitely not the issue. So just get rid of all this. I have stopped caring. And I'm just going to kind of assume can we make this into a exposed variable? Because that'll at least make things a little bit better, and then its default value can be 5 seconds. Like, it's not great. But it's better. So the dash, we can say, hey, you're only like 2 seconds long. At which point we might as well get rid of this waiting node, because that's like just kind of implied in there. Well, for this one specifically, it might still make sense to put it in there. Yeah, for this one specifically, let's keep it. Yeah, so that will probably fix that issue. Not in the most elegant way. I really thought we had something there, man, with the whole event dispatcher situation. But it ended up only being more problematic in the end. I like honestly just do not. Is it still getting stuck? No, it's not still getting stuck. Never mind. It's just. Okay, so and it moves into the actual waiting node, and then it'll attack me. Which takes quite a few seconds. So yeah, this one definitely is a little too long. Probably needs to be closer to 3 seconds. Yeah, not a great solution. I'll be the first to admit. Actually, kind of a bad solution. But it works now. Right? Yes, it does. So... that's all it needs to do, is work. And it seems to. Come on, dash toward me. We might shorten this to just like 1 second. It's a working solution, but it's a little bit clunky because now we're needing to give in the duration of each ability. Which... like, I would much prefer the task to just end when the ability ends, you know? But this kind of works for now. Animation duration would work for the attacks. You're right, yeah, it would. It wouldn't work for a lot of other abilities that have like variable lengths. But for specifically the just playing an attack animation, that would work. But the dash can be like a split second if you're like very close. But it can also take like upward of a second. So that really needs to like just give out a signal when it is done. But to be fair though, this does work fairly well even without that. But if we like stay pretty close to this dude, right? Well, I guess it really doesn't matter because the dash just gets interrupted, doesn't it, with the other ability? So we don't even need to do anything on its end because its node gets interrupted anyway. I guess that actually doesn't really matter that much. Huh. Where even is he? Oh, there. If I wanted to try to make a Snowpiercer-inspired game on a real planet where a player is on a train that goes around the entire planet, would it be possible in Unreal Engine 5? I imagine so, yeah. Like, at the end of the day, for most things that are 3D, I would be pretty comfortable saying if it's not possible in Unreal Engine, it's probably just not possible, period. Just due to like computing hardware limitations. Because Unreal Engine is probably for, again, 3D specifically, 3D games like this, it's probably one of the most optimized engines out there in a lot of ways. I believe Unity does a better job with certain physics calculations, from what I understand. Unreal's specifically optimized in rendering very efficiently. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So, yeah, and it runs in C++, which is just like compile straight into machine code, while Unity and things like Do run on C#, which runs in a runtime, which is fine, but like technically there's like a little translation happening there, which is frankly not noticeable, but a calculatable amount of performance overhead that it takes, which also makes them easier to decompile in theory, I think. If that's something you care about, but you probably don't, or you shouldn't really, because decompiling any game is still a massive fucking pain, and nobody's actually gonna like put that effort into any of our like stupid little indie projects. So yeah, now long story short, if you want to do it, it's probably possible in Unreal, but doesn't mean it's going to be easy. Voxel plugin for Worldscape and for planets. A Voxel plugin. That's actually, never thought about that. I did a little bit like making Minecraft in Unreal. I thought I might make that a video one day, and then I realized that I have to like code something to like actually generate a mesh for each chunk, because the way Minecraft works, I did some research on this, and now I understand why Minecraft has chunks, right? Because I was like, it's just like a bunch of blocks that get loaded in 16 by 16 by like 256, whatever that word height is these days. I think it's more now. Like that's just a bunch of blocks that all get like grouped together and loaded in and out. But that's not how that works at all. The way Minecraft works is you have that chunk, and that's just one mesh that gets like generated on the fly. And when you remove a block, it just regenerates an entire mesh really quickly. Which is also why if you go into spectator mode and you go through one block, all the other blocks aren't being rendered, because they're not there. It's only the outside faces of each like block that faces air that gets rendered, because again, it's just each chunk is just one mesh. And that's how Minecraft is able to somewhat optimally run. Even the Java version fairly well. The C++ version and Bedrock version way better. In terms of performance, I prefer playing the Java version, but when I figured out that's how Minecraft works, I was like, no, I'm not doing that. I was trying to do this for a fun little side project, for a video, not for like a fucking PhD. So I was like, no, let's not do that. Because let me tell you, if you do it the way I thought initially, hey, let's start doing it this way and then we can try to optimize things. Even if you like instance all those meshes, the fact that they're separate meshes, even if they're instanced, if you generate like more than like 10 chunks, which is like 1,000 or so instance cubes, and those are just cubes, very low poly, you're fucked. You're entirely like, it just doesn't do that. So I figure, you know what, I'm not even gonna bother. There probably is some algorithm that you can just like throw in, which kind of just does that for you. But I didn't care enough to look for it, to be honest with you. Because I should point out another reason why that is so relevant, that it is one mesh. Because if you have like 2 blocks, right? If those are 2 separate meshes, we have like the 6 sides of it all getting rendered, and those are like triangles, technically speaking. So those are all like polygons, and even if you only render the ones somehow that are visible to the air, that's still like, from this view, this is still 2 squares, so 4 triangles. But if we have 2 blocks, but they're the same mesh, that can be optimized into just being 1 square, so 2 triangles. Now imagine this with like, I think this program actually has like a, yeah. So imagine this with like a bunch of squares instead. The frankly ridiculous amount of faces that it takes to render something like this, which is like really starting to look more like a Picasso piece than Minecraft, but hey, what do you know? Like all this is now 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, so 20 faces. Whereas if you make this just one mesh, congratulations, it's two faces, right? So that is like a huge part of the reason why you want to make it one mesh, because you can make so much stuff, just like throw them together into one polygon. Nanite doesn't really work that well on low poly meshes. Like if you have a bunch of low poly meshes, Nanite isn't really going to do too much for you, because Nanite is very good at taking something that is like thousands, hundreds of thousands even, of polygons and making it renderable fairly easily. But if you have like 1,000 things that are all low poly, Nanite is still only going to make each individual one low poly, if that makes sense. And if they're already low poly, you're not really saving that much. But what I'm just describing, like smushing these faces together and then like combining them to make them more low poly, like that part of it can probably be done through Nanite. So you probably wouldn't have to in Unreal code that yourself. If you just question is how Nanite would deal with dynamically generated meshes. I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know if Nanite can work on dynamically generated meshes, or if it has to be on like a static mesh asset. Because it streams it from disk, right? When you use Nanite. That's why you need an SSD for it. So I'm guessing dynamically generated meshes and Nanite don't mix that well. Unless you can then put those somewhere to disk, I suppose. Maybe it can stream it from memory as well. At which point is it really streaming still? I don't know. But maybe it can take those meshes that exist in memory and still do its magic on it. I don't know. I didn't care enough to look this deep into it. Well, not deeper than I have. Like everything that I've just explained, I looked into, but not much more than that. So I think we're going to call it here for today. It's been like 2.5 hours. We pretty much have the basics of his aggressive state in place. And from here, I think what we want to do is we want to make the taunt animation for his passive state. So his passive state actually like does something. And then we want to make his special ability as well. Is there not nanites on virtual landscapes? There might be. Yeah, I think you got a point. I'm not entirely sure, but I think you're onto something there. So probably nanite can work on dynamically generated meshes, which would help there. But you'd still need to make the code to like generate that mesh for every chunk, and that also was like a headache that I really didn't feel like getting into. But once you have done that, and if that is nanite enabled, that would save you probably still like half of the work in like optimizing that mesh. It still might be like somewhat more performant to do it yourself versus nanite, specifically because it's like cubes and voxel based. So I think you can probably get away with more than nanite would take away from it. But I'm not sure. Like there was a mod for I think, yeah, it must have been the Java version, because modding Bedrock I don't think is even a thing. There was a mod for Minecraft a while ago that pretty much just did this. Like apply dynamic LODs, which is just like nanite without branding, to Minecraft chunks, so that you could put your render distance up to like 100+ chunks, and you could just see pretty much your entire Minecraft world. Now, none of like the instancing of like mobs and stuff would be there, obviously, because mobs I think despawn after like 200 blocks anyway, no matter your render distance. But you could see very far away the entire world in very low detail in the background, which does look really, really cool in Minecraft. Then if you add Optifine and you zoom in, you can see that it's like really, really messed up. But it was effectively like a version of Nanite running in Minecraft Java, which is insane. Yeah, just doing Minecraft with every block is an instance of its own would be really easy. Like, I got that much done. Like, I got a pretty good landscape generator that would just generate, like, the top layer of a landscape through, like, Perl and noise and stuff. A couple of layers, which I guess is technically then Brownian noise. But, like, a couple of layers with different, like, magnitudes and different scales. I got a pretty good, like, landscape generator, the top of it anyway, with a couple of holes in it every now and then, I must admit. But the moment I started adding in the blocks under it, my frame rate went to like 2 frames per second. So it's not even like this won't be viable in the future. It's like even doing a handful of chunks just wasn't viable to begin with. Yeah, so I'm just kind of hanging out and not doing anything at this point. So I'm going to log off, and we're going to continue this next Tuesday with probably some more animation and maybe some other stuff. I don't know what exactly we will be doing, but we made a little bit of progress today, and it was a fun stream. So I'll see you all back next week. Maybe this weekend, maybe next weekend I'll be doing a bonus stream. I'm not entirely sure. I want to do some streams where I play in Godot, because in the Discord we've been talking about Godot, and frankly, I don't see myself doing too much like 2D game development, but I'm sure as hell not going to do it in Unity if I want to do something 2D. Like if I ever want to do like a game jam and I want to do something 2D. Unreal, not particularly great for 2D, let's be honest. It's got the like Paper 2D plugin, which is no longer officially supported. Community support has a version of it that's Paper ZD, I believe, ZD, whatever you want to call it. But I don't ever want to rely on that. And that, still then, it doesn't feel like Unreal is really like designed to be doing 2D stuff. So I don't really want to do that, if I'm being honest with you. So if I ever want to do something 2D, you pretty much got like Game Maker and Unity and Godot. Unity, I'm not touching. I mean, I did some Unity. This game initially started as a Unity project. I switched to Unreal for other reasons. Then Unity fucking shit the bed. And I'm saying the hell away from it. It's just, that's all there is to it. So I want to play around a little bit in Godot, make a fun little sample game, something very simple like a tycoon game or something like that. And I want to do it on stream and then edit that down into a video. I just don't know when I will do that in streaming. I might do that after we finish this boss fight. I might like pick a couple of weekend days over the next couple of weeks where I just stream a little extra and do it in depth. I'm not entirely sure yet, but that sounds like it's going to be like a fun little adventure to go on together. So we'll see. Maybe probably not this weekend, because I really do also need to catch up on some YouTube videos and just take a little bit of rest. It's been a busy like 2 or 3 weeks for me. But maybe like next weekend, we'll see. See you later. Bye-bye.